All right, and we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Tumbly Drunk, and tonight on episode 232, we'll be taking a look at the latest news both around Overwatch as well as its competitive scene. So before we get into the news tonight and introduce you to my co-host, let me just quickly take a moment to thank everyone who is joining us tonight on Twitch for our live show, and of course thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me as always is my co-host Editor and Ed. We're close. BlizzCon line right around the corner. A lot of exciting stuff, hopefully, to be announced there. But lately, there's a little bit of drama. Just a hair.
A little bit of
A little
drama.
bit.
A little bit of drama. Yeah, we're getting awfully close to being severely disappointed in Overwatch news. Um, at BlizzCon line because I think anything other than it will be out in the next 6 months will be a massive disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just go with that. But yeah, no, it's there's a bunch of shenanery happening right now. Shenanery.
Yeah, not a lot of do-goodery. It's more fuckery than
Yes,
anything.
very true.
But we will get into that in just a little bit. Let's dive into the Overwatch news. So I do want to note, we did have a couple of things in our show notes that were like, well, the thing starts tomorrow, so we really shouldn't get into it, like, if we're still planning on recording next week, but we do have the Lunar New Year event starting Thursday this week. That would be tomorrow. That, of course, being February 4th. And, of course, as is custom, we have been seeing some snippets in regards to previews for some of the cosmetics, one of which was very Soul Dynasty inspired, because it's pretty damn close to the actual Tiger. But we'll dive more into that next week because we don't know everything that is going to be happening with that patch when the event goes live. So we're gonna sit on that stuff for now, and we'll go into it in further detail next week at some point. But let's talk about the stuff that is actually happening in game already. And we did have a patch that dropped on retail servers that was on January 28th. This was a balance patch. That was basically changes that they had added in regards to that less experimental card. So they were primarily looking at Echo, Tracer, and Zenyatta. So for Echo, the tri-shot ammo was reduced from 15, now down to 12. And the focus and beam duration was reduced from 2.5 seconds, now down to 2 seconds. So, of
Mm-hmm.
course, with Echo, this is a mobile based hero that has quite a bit of burst potential when you factor in the sticky bombs as well as that focus beam. And, it just seems like they're trying to decrease the overall, fire duration given these changes here so far. But lately, we have been seeing quite a bit of Tracer and Echo compositions. And it seems like whenever there starts to be a sort of a meta shift, they haven't really necessarily been nerfing them right out of the gate, but this one is a bit more on the nose than what we are used to seeing, in kind of like metas past, where they were actually pretty quick to bring these two mobile heroes down a little bit.
Yeah, I think it has more to do with the fact that they're so mobile that they can be exploited very easily on top of having the mobility. Like so you have these super powerful characters with the mobility and that tends to lead towards more chaos than they might want. If Echo and Tracer had less mobility, it, in my mind, probably means more. Like for instance, let's say McCree was like the go to. You know what I mean? Like they would be less hesitant because yeah, he may be powerful and damage, but he doesn't have the mobility. In this instance, Echo and Tracer had the damage and the mobility, and that's just a recipe for disaster. Um, and you're seeing a lot of these changes. Like we haven't seen a whole lot of buffs, and a lot of this is but we've seen a lot of nerfs. Um, because I think they're trying to nerf to get rid of power creep level.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what they're doing here. The Echo ones I agree with. The Tracer ones, I could like take or leave them, but the Echo one was definitely needed.
Yeah, so Echo basically just lowering the sustained damage output that she has. And with Tracer, they were looking at the pulse pistols for the min-max damage fall-off, where it rescales from 13 to 23 meters, now down to 12 to 20. So just a different fall-off range in that regard. So the damage should scale down a little bit quicker when they're more like on the outside in regards to like the distance compared to where the Tracer is at. So basically making Tracer less of kind of like a mid-range like hit scan essentially in this case. So paired together, there's also Zenyatta changes, which are pretty spicy actually. And there's actually quite a few changes to Zenyatta with the orb. So with the Orb of Harmony, they lowered the projectile speed from 120 down to 90. And then with a Discord, there are two changes for Zenyatta. They reduced the projectile speed from 120 now down to 90, and the damage amplification was reduced from 30% now down to 25%. So, for a while there, that damage amplification part of Discord really enabled a lot of team-wide damage outputs, because 30% was, fairly substantial. And, I wouldn't say Zenyatta has necessarily always been meta, but the potency of just having that extra damage being able to be dealt to, whatever the focus target is, has always been, like, one of the highlights of that particular hero's kit.
I will say this. The reason that Zenyatta needed to be nerfed is not because Zenyatta was too powerful. And, like, this is one of those things where, you remember back in GOATS, where they're like, oh, we want to get rid of GOATS, let's nerf Brigitte?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, it's not Brigitte. Like, yeah, she's a problem, but she's not the thing causing GOATS. It's like the Lucio speed boost and stuff like that. With Zenyatta, the reason Zenyatta has become so powerful is because the tanks that are out there are not shield tanks. Like, the most popular tanks right now are Wrecking Ball and Zarya at the Grandmaster level. So you don't have that shield to, like, if you Discord orb someone and then you can burst it down. Like, if you Discord orb Reinhardt, he still has a shield to protect him. Wrecking Ball and Zarya really don't have that. I mean, now Zarya has the bubble, but I think this is like a meta built for Zenyatta. So it's not that a Zenyatta is too powerful. I think it's that the tanks in the meta right now are just not good with it. Now, do you change the tanks or do you change Zenyatta? Probably change Zenyatta. But the problem then you run into is when you change the tanks around, which inevitably that will occur, will you change Zenyatta back?
Yeah, because the other part of it is just they were matching that projectile speed between his orbs as well, so it matches his primary fire, basically. So whenever there is another swap in regards to, a tank meta, I wonder if they would revert that projectile speed reduction and just put it back to that initial 120, or if it's just going to stay in its newer iteration at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it will be interesting. I don't think. I think when things change, and they will change, obviously, everything will change, is when it goes back to like a shield tank type of meta, Zenyatta's going to be almost useless until they. But that's just kind of the rotation of heroes in this game. You go like meta to meta, and you may not fit the next meta, so you won't be like worth a damn. And so, sucks to be Jonak. Because by the time Overwatch League comes out, like starts, they will probably not be on Wrecking Ball Zarya meta.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see. But you know what? I like that they didn't buff characters. That's the one thing I'm a big fan of, is they didn't buff characters, because the last thing we need is just more power creep in this game.
Right on. So we got that to look forward to, as well as, a certain online event that is happening in 16 days from today. That is BlizzConline, and Blizzard is celebrating its 30th year as a company. So, of course, with that, as is kind of customary, there are in-game goodies that we are going to be available to purchase, and there are 3 different bundles in regards to virtual goodies this year through the Blizzard shop for BlizzConline. And, there's a little bit for, like, each game. But for, like, Overwatch specifically, you can get some loot boxes, you get a BlizzCon icon, a BlizzCon spray, and then if you get, like, some of the higher tier ones, they do have a really cool Reinhardt StarCraft-themed Reynard skin, which is actually pretty badass. That is in the Heroic pack, which is the middle tier. And then with the Epic pack, there are 3 golden loot boxes, which, guarantees you get a legendary in those ones. And, those don't really happen all that often, or are available all that often. So hopefully players will get something good in that. But again, like, that's just like the base version of the loot box, just a golden iteration. So
Yeah.
when you're looking at the packs, they start at $20. I think the mid-table one was $40. Epic one is $60. And you do also get a discount for the Blizzard store for like 15% when you do purchases. So all in all, if you only play select titles, maybe you're not going to go out of your way to get too many in regards to like a higher bundle. But I was hoping for more crossover stuff. Like, I want more of those Warcraft themed skins for Overwatch. Cause just having one doesn't really feel like it's all that much.
Yeah, like this was pretty. I mean, all right. So I talked to you about this bundle from yesterday, when we did our Hearthstone podcast. Is like, this is only a worthwhile. Like, don't go the $60 route unless you also play World of Warcraft.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the game. That's a game that this, like, whatever pass BlizzConline special is almost made for, is Warcraft. That's you get the best thing at the $40 tier, and you get a month free Warcrafts at the $60 tier. The 3, if you've been playing Overwatch for any amount of time, the 3 golden legendary 3 golden boxes is really not worth it.
I mean, it could be anything. It could be another loot box. That's not true.
Yes, I got in
The
one
mystery
of mine. I
box.
got in one of mine. I got gold currency. Like you know what I mean? It's just not worth it.
That just means you have too many legendary skins.
Yes. So it's cool. I think the $40 version is probably going to be the most popular.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get the Reinhardt skin and 5 boxes for $40, and you get. I mean, if you play any other Blizzard games, you get other stuff with that as well. But I think it's solely rides on Warcraft.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that said, I bought the $60 version because I play Warcraft a bunch, I play Hearthstone a bunch, and I play Overwatch a bunch. The only game I don't play from Blizzard that is part of all of this is Diablo, and I will never get into Diablo ever. Click to move can burn in hell.
Well, it's a good thing they have an app coming out.
They announced that game 2 years ago. It'll probably come out.
That'll be the only release date we get. Watch.
Right? Oh my god, I would lose my shit. The only thing announced definitively is the freaking Diablo mobile game that they announced 2 years ago. It'd be like, oh, burn in hell, Activision.
Well, I mean, I don't care what people say. I'm looking forward to Diablo Immortals. But I'm also a fan of Diablo.
I love the lore, the thinking of the lore with Diablo. I just can't get behind any click to move games.
Okay.
So that's like, and so that includes like MOBAs, stuff like that. I cannot get behind.
So okay, so to backtrack here really quick. You said the only game that you wouldn't play is Diablo, when in fact you just completely forgot about Heroes of the Storm.
But no, I said the only game included with all. Oh wait, no, they do.
They have the Tracer mount.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah,
got you there. All right, moving on. Let's talk some competitive esports on the Overwatch front. Quite a bit going on, actually. Obviously, there is one news bit way bigger than the other. We'll save that for the end because it's been the hot button topic across the board. But we got some merch news, which I'm actually really excited about. And that is the fact that teams, after all of this time, can finally produce their own merchandise.
Yep.
So
not related to Fanatics.
Yes. Completely outside of Fanatics, because that was a 2-year deal with that particular retailer. And we have seen some teams already starting to make their own merch. I know San Francisco Shock had already posted a ton of stuff. I know the Mayhem were also, quote, hypothetically, like, asking, like, what people would like to see in regards to that.
New York did the same thing.
Yeah, so
I'm super effing excited about this.
Yeah, I'm really anxious to see what in particular the community is wanting to see, because for a while it kind of felt like we were shoehorned into just very basic things, whether it was one specific type of hat, or, you would have, like, 1 or 2 jersey designs. They had leggings, socks. I want to see what else we're going to be getting with this, and I want to see the new collaborations out there, because you have to expect that's going to be happening between these teams and these independent retailers or designers moving forward, and we've already started to see some of that with the Shock, who I know partnered with MetaThreads for their new attire, which is looking pretty damn good as well. And I'm kind of curious, does that mean, like, these teams are also setting their own prices?
I would think so. Like, I mean, I have 5 jerseys. I'm wearing one right now. I'm wearing my Goose Way. The thing is the jerseys they did for last year, there's zero, like, for starters, they were just not good. And
they were expensive as fuck.
Yes. Like
That
they
was
were
a
a
big
hundred.
thing.
They were $170, $80 for a jersey. So when you have the 50% off sale, you're still paying $100 when it comes down to that plus taxes or shipping. Like, no, I don't want a 50% off jersey to be over $100.
Hmm.
Like, fuck that. Also, I'm kind of sick of the okay, well, here's what we have to offer. You get a jersey t-shirt, a generic long sleeve t-shirt, socks, a scarf, and one hat. And that's really all you have to go off of. So yeah, it's one of those things. This is very, very welcomed. And you know what? I'm more inclined to actually buy some of this stuff, buy some more Gladiators gear. Um for this upcoming season if it's well, one, cheaper, two, it's actually made by the team and not just the league saying, hey, we're gonna do this.
Right. That reminds me, I am going to pull up the Shock site to see what sort of price points
Yeah.
we're looking at here. You know, it would help, like, when I actually search for this, if it was the first thing to pop up. Good SEO on that one. I found it, though. So let
I legit type in O and the first site that comes up, Overwatch League.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so, like, you know, we were just talking about how expensive last season's jerseys were, and, you know, they are marked down pretty extensively. Right now, with the code, they are $45 for just, like, the base ones, and they were originally $89.99 for just, like, the base,
No.
authentic...
Oh, with no actual
Yes,
name on
just
it.
the base one. Which, you know, even regardless of whether or not it has a name on it, you know, we were usually spending like $40 to $60 for like the authentic jerseys prior to that as well. Okay, let's see. Can we
I don't see
filter
any
it?
new stuff.
I was I was curious to see if we can filter it by new arrivals or not, but I don't actually see that as an option.
I don't think you can. Oh, newest items is one. And the newest item for the Shock is the 2020 Overwatch League Grand Finals champions pullover.
Really?
Yeah. So,
Let me check their Twitter. Because I'm sure
yeah,
they
who
sent
knows?
out a tweet about it.
Yeah.
Because, okay, I found it. They were on a completely different website. I'll post it in a Twitch chat. So
Okay.
here's the new gear. All right, we got windbreakers at $90. We got some men's tees at $25. Long sleeve shirts at $30. Looks like we got hoodies at $70. Or, you know, there's a couple of different hoodie variations ranging from 50 to 70. And hats are $25. So, you know, there's actually quite a bit here in regards to just new merch.
Yeah.
And, you know, all of this, as I said, is through meta threads. So, you know, that's already a very respectable name, especially like in the esports front. You know, a lot of esports orgs actually go through them specifically for their jersey designs. So like this will give you like a baseline idea of probably what you can expect to see from a lot of the other teams. I just want to see if there are any teams that like deviate away and go for different types of apparel over, you know, what the Shock are doing. But I'm not surprised that the Shock were like the first ones out of the gate to hit this thing running, just because they are the back-to-back champions. They have one of the larger followings, and you know they're just flat out one of the better ran organizations within the Overwatch League.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the thing is they're also the most successful. So they have a little bit more stake in the game. I think we're gonna get more variety of things
Hmm.
in the future. This, like, what the Shock put in there is the very basic. It's the basic of the basic. T-shirt, long sleeve t-shirt, hoodie, hat, jacket. Like, that is the basic of the basic. So like I expect more to come from it. But it's nice that they'll be able to, and this is probably something that's been in the works for a few years now, where it's like, okay, you have to, like, for marketing purposes and like, revenue from all that, you have to be in agreement for the first 3 years with the Overwatch League and what they have deemed, you know,
Hmm.
this is what has to be done. And then you guys can break out on your own. Because you don't want them breaking out on their own right away, because then you're pulling away from revenue from the company as a whole while you're trying to get started. But now, as they're kind of set in place, they're like, okay, now you can start generating more revenue for yourself by doing stuff like this.
Right, and
So
they need something to bring in more revenue, because of the lack of home games that are going on. You don't have the
yes,
ticket sales or anything like that, so you need another way to get some cash back into the system, and getting some new merch is definitely a good route to do that. And hopefully the teams find success with the stuff that they are buying. Otherwise, we might see some quick clearances.
right. I'm
They're.
super, I'm super excited for the gladiators
Mhm.
stuff.
I would imagine we'll probably be hearing more and more about this in the coming weeks. And then by the start of April, I would hope by then all of the teams would have a functioning team shop at that point. If
What
not, they
what
would be severely dropping the ball, right?
what actually would be interesting to me is if it is like a contract type thing,
Hmm.
if the teams that entered in year 2
Okay.
have to wait another year to do that.
Mm,
You know what I mean? So like
right.
your Vancouver Titans, Paris, Toronto, you know what I mean? Like they might have to wait a year before they can do stuff like that
Well,
outside of.
maybe the deal was through the league specifically with the partnership and not team exclusive.
Yeah. And that could be it. Like I just don't know. It's just good that we're getting more options.
Hmm.
Like that's really all it is I'm just happy we're getting more options for me to waste money on. Cuz
Absolutely.
I already have 5 jerseys. I don't know why I need more.
No reason.
Exactly.
Consumerism. That's why. Yeah.
Like I don't know if I want another jersey
Hmm.
unless we get a Chicago team. Um but like there's other things I would like. You know what I would love?
What's that?
Team Yetis. So
Okay.
like if I could get, like, right now holding up on stream, I'm holding up a Yeti cup, and these things usually are about 15-20 bucks a piece. Give me an LA Gladiators one for 25 bucks, I will buy that shit instantly. You know what I mean? I want stuff like that.
Right.
I don't need a scarf. I don't. I don't need flip-flops or sandals. No one needs that. Okay? Because you're not even selling flip-flops. You're selling the other ones where people wear socks with them, and then you know what? You're just a horrible person.
Hmm.
So I don't know. Let's move on before I go on a more of a rant about apparel in the Overwatch League.
Well, that's not the only bright news spot that we have for you, Edinar, because your favorite player of the Overwatch League is returning home to the Houston Outlaws. I'm talking about your boy Jake. Jake moving away from the casting booth to join as a DPS player, with more of a focus on player coaching
Yep.
for the Houston Outlaws this season. Jake, he had a tweet longer just basically saying, he needed a little bit of a break from professional play in order to, reset, recharge. And he really feels like right now he is the best that he's ever been in the game, and even more so outside of it as a person. So you know, when you talk about like spokespersons for the Overwatch League, I don't think there are that many people out there who would disagree with the fact that Jake has basically been that guy. He's probably the
Hmm.
first name that you think of when you think of the Overwatch League because he was the one making a lot of the appearances. And I know like Super was also up there as well, but like Jake was the one that would like sit in with the like Olympics committee in order to like try to see if we can get esports as part of the Olympics because he just
Hmm.
has such a huge understanding of FPS games, and of course, there's a whole discussion about whether or not the media always like inflates the whole narrative that violent video games cause violent tendencies in people. All that aside, but Jake was always the guy that would go out to all of these news stations or kind of like just be the voice for esports or the Overwatch League as a whole. And he's always been a very smart player, but being with the Outlaws obviously kind of came with its own faults at times because that had been a
Yes.
team that had a lot of popular players, high expectations, but didn't quite live up to the expectations that the community put on them. Same can be said for the expectations that, they would have had as a team as well.
Hmm.
But with such a sharp mind, I'm really anxious to see if this is just going to be this transitional period where, Jake will be focusing on more of, maybe the quote, like off meta heroes that, the other DPS players aren't comfortable with. And then, helping the players improve outside of that, where going into the 2022 season, he'll transition into a full time coaching spot. Because I really think for Jake, we've seen a lot of players moving into different avenues, whether it's coaching, whether it is content creation, whether, it's podcasting or being a streamer for, these organizations or whatever. Like, I know Iman just got signed by The Shock as a streamer. Fran is, I think, with Toronto now.
Sure,
Like,
sure. Ford just signed with the Sentinels
yeah.
today.
So there's been a lot of stuff on like the content creation front, but with Jake specifically, I think he probably has the highest like threshold in regards to just player knowledge and understanding the game where he could end up being one of the better player turn coaches
Hmm.
in esports, let alone just Overwatch. So I want to see what that next step is going to be. But like I'm very curious to see if Jake coming in is only going to be a specialist because that's what it really feels like right now. Since he kept hyping up the coaching aspect and how he's excited about that in particular, but I wouldn't say Jake still has a lot to prove. But
No, yeah, he
I'm
doesn't.
sure part of it is just he wants to see this team succeed, and he didn't really want to go anywhere else because he's an outlaw, for life.
Yeah, he's 100. All right. Now people harass me about my hatred of Jake. It's not anything against Jake. I actually met Jake. I have a picture with Jake. Like, it's not something that I'm like, you know what? This is something I need to just air out my hatred for him because he was one of the nicest people I've ever freaking met. Um, but it's this is not a I'm coming back as a player move. It's almost like he got brought back as a coach, but they wanted to have somebody also on the team
Hmm.
that could play um DPS to add to their lineup so they didn't have to sign somebody else.
Yeah, and
Like
Mangachu
he's
was
a,
in the
he's a,
same position with the Defiant that past season.
yeah, I think Jake is going to end up being the in case of emergency break glass DPS player. more of a coach than anything. And you know what? And then next year, they bring him back as probably an assistant coach, or someone hires him away as a head coach, or he gets hired as the head coach. Um, with with Houston, maybe. But I think this is a natural progression. Jake, just from talking to Jake for 10-15 minutes, you could just tell that he has that coach mentality.
And that's because he was talking for all 15 of those minutes.
No. Actually, I was talking for a lot of it. When me and Jake meet up, it's a battle of who can talk for fucking longer. But yeah, you know what? Like, he's destined to be a coach.
Mm-hmm.
He's destined to either be a coach or an announcer, and he did the announcing thing, and he went to coaching. So it's good for him. I hope he excels. I don't think we'll really see him play, unless something crazy happens, but we will see him probably the year after this as like a full-time coach.
Yeah, if the Outlaws don't have like a Rip Tire plush or something of that sort on their shop, I'm gonna be severely disappointed knowing that Jake is with the team. Because right now we've seen the backpack, which is awesome. It's just really expensive. We need more Rip Tire gear. Is basically what I'm trying to get to. But anyways, so we got that edition for the Outlaws, a return. I don't know what that means for like Jake's number since they retired that, or if he's swapping or they're unretiring. I don't know what the deal is on that front. But we do have some new acquisitions for the Boston Uprising, who have turned to WGS Phoenix out of Contenders Korea for 2 new signings. So we got DPS Valentine, as well as a main support in Faith. And WGS is a team that had won the second season of Contenders Korea this past year, and they defeated Runaway in that particular final. And, we started to see a bit of a reunion now, more so with World GameStar Phoenix, because their head coach, Lori, came from that particular team, as did I'm 37. So, we're starting to see some synergies coming back into play on that front. And, I have to say, like, with the Boston sign-ins this offseason, it's not as much doom and gloom that is normally hanging over their heads.
See, here's the thing is, this team with these signings, I think, bumped up to the 10 to 13 rank in my mind.
Okay.
Because you have Faith to pair along with Myungbong. So you will have a good support lineup in that. And then you have the DPS duo. You have the DPS quadruple of Color Hex, I'm 37, Soon, and Valentine. So you have a good DPS lineup. I actually think it's a very good DPS lineup. And then Punk showed flashes of awesomeness last year, at least fan favorite-ish last year. And then you get Stand 1 as your main tank over Fusions, hopefully. So, like, to me, this screams like a 10 to 13 range team with the signings they've done. And it's pretty impressive. I like this team right now.
A lot of people are like, oh, well, Valentine is underage, but, like, he turns 18 this month, so...
He turns 18 as of this recording. Like, I think...
It's February 14th, according to Liquipedia.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. So he's going to turn 18 like 2 months before the Overwatch League season starts.
Yeah, so they'll
He's
have a full roster regardless. Or everyone at their disposal, I should say, who are currently signed to this team. And, for Uprising, I really hope Color Hex is able to bounce back, because he's kind of been their staple DPS player. But he's been kind of like all over the place. So, We'll have to see,
Mhm.
like, did they bring Soon in to cover, like, hit scan primarily, or did they bring him more to have that veteran type experience or just guidance for some of the younger DPS players on this
Like
team?
the only thing is I think Valentine and Color Hacks kind of have the similar rules.
Yeah, he was
Like,
projectile.
yeah, it's projectiles. Where I hate to say it, it's gonna be probably, and I have no idea how this goes. It's gonna be either Color Hex or Valentine, one of those two, and either Soon or IM37. One of those two. I think those are the two categories you're gonna kind of break it off into. Now they could do something funky, you know what I mean, with their lineup, but Soon and IM37 kind of play similar roles, and Color Hex and Valentine do. And they're just kind of gonna see what goes best with each. Part of me was really cheering for IM37 over Soon, because I think he got a bad rap getting brought into the league
Yeah,
3 weeks
after the
after,
speed run, yeah.
yeah, 3 weeks after he started playing competitive Overwatch. He was put in the Overwatch League. Um, but it's definitely it's an interesting team that I think is really going to shine this year.
Yeah,
Really.
yeah, that was also a much different time too when I'm 37 came in because that was during the goats meta, and he wasn't playing DPS. He was between Brigida and Zarya at the
Exactly.
time, and it
Like you
changed week
bring in
to
a
week in tier
you
2 for him.
yeah, you bring in a DPS player and be like, okay, now you're bringing in like this young hotshot DPS player, and you're not allowed to play DPS. Be like,
Hmm.
well, crap on a cracker.
Yeah.
So
All right. So outside of that, a couple of updates on just like the broadcast front, I guess. Obviously, like improvements are coming to the Overwatch League via YouTube this year. And, one of the biggest things, of course, is account linking being like the highest priority, which we've already have seen with the CDL. It's coming for the Overwatch League as well. And I know for like Call of Duty, they were offering things like weapon charms, you could get emblems, calling cards, XP tokens. We don't know what the Overwatch League front is going to be, whether it's just going to be the currency for like the Overwatch League tokens, or if there's going to be like secondary drops or anything like that. So details are still not there in that regard. But who knows? Like maybe there will be additional stuff added on top of that, as opposed to just the drops that we saw via Twitch at the time in years past. But something that also caught my eye is just the fact that, they're talking about how they are launching a new fantasy pick'em game for the Overwatch League. That will basically be happening for the tournament aspect of the Overwatch League this season. So, like,
nope.
we've talked about like the format in which there's 4 tournaments throughout the season. I'm curious to see if we're gonna have like a prize pool for fantasy pickups in regards to this
Okay.
or not. I don't know.
They've had pick'ems in the past, and they were a colossal failure.
Are you talking about the league pickums, which was the Twitch extension ones?
Yes, the Twitch
Yeah,
extension
which
ones.
was like broken 80% of the time.
Yeah, it was a massive failure. So I'm actually not going to hold my breath with any of that.
Hmm.
Any of the stuff they announced regarding that is like, I'm just thinking, okay, so at the beginning of a match, you have to pick who wins, who gets the most damage done on the first map, like just random crap like that. That is completely and utterly useless.
I would imagine it
Um,
would just be done through the Overwatch League website, which you'd be logged into. You'll put
mhm.
your picks for the week and then just leave it.
Yeah, the only thing is I feel like there's going to be integration between YouTube and the Overwatch League site, because
Okay.
YouTube, as big as much as YouTube probably paid for this partnership, they don't want the Overwatch League to be like, hey, let's let's encourage them to do this and not be on YouTube.
Right.
So I think like it's one of those things where I think they could make in a like I mean I don't want to say an example out of it, but like they could make an exception for the for Overwatch League and allowing external like attachments, almost like Twitch
Like
does.
it was already embedded on the Overwatch League site for the
Yeah,
YouTube.
it could be, but like the thing is that's not counting towards like, and it may in the background, I don't know this like specifics of
Hmm.
all of it, but it's not counting towards
The live viewership.
the live
Hmm.
viewership because you're watching it secondhand on a different website.
I don't think that's necessarily a problem though, because with YouTube, the vast majority of your viewership isn't happening from live; it's through the VODs.
But does it include it as VODs? Like, how does it count it?
That I don't know, but you can look at
Exactly.
the average minute audience, and Overwatch League was still doing pretty good this past season, even without the integrations to account linking or anything like that. So, and like I know there might have been like a couple of lull points like before we kind of got the tournament structure in where we gotta see a lot of like repetitive matches happening very early on in the season, and then once they swap to the format, viewership definitely saw an increase on that front. But there's been that like discussion across the board where it's like, well, how much of a detriment was like not having account linking or drops enabled to what we were seeing with the live viewership? Like, was it that make or break, or are people just blowing it out of proportion? And, we really don't have a way of knowing that. Obviously, this year was kind of like all over the place because of, the ongoing pandemic. That's still going to be the case. But, it's definitely worth noting. Like, of course, having account linking is going to bring viewership. It's just a matter of
Yes.
to what extent are people going to be coming in, and will we see a growth over time, or will it continue to kind of be more even keel, which is kind of like what we were seeing once we did make the adjustments to the tournament format for the Overwatch League.
Yeah. Like that's going to be the big decider. We just need more information on how the linking is going to work and how you get Overwatch League tokens and stuff like that. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. I guess it's just a shit show at this point.
Right.
Like I hate to say it, but you just don't know. And it's not going to get any clearer until they actually announce something, which they probably will here in the next month.
I just want weekly
'Cause
prizes. That's what I want to see from the pick'em.
weekly prizes would be good. Like if they do like the weekly the pick'ems, and if you get the weekly right, like a weekly guess 'em game,
Mm-hmm.
if you get that right, you get 1,000 tokens, or you get 200 tokens, or you know what I mean, like something random like that. Would be awesome. But we just don't know how it's gonna work. They just said that they're gonna integrate it with YouTube, so
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, then the other aspect of it is we know that IBM is going to be launching new stat tools. And, like, I don't know if that means, all right, that's going to offer additional stats available to display on the broadcast. Could it open the door for traditional fantasy in the future? There's still a lot of unknowns on that front, so, I don't want to, like, make any, like, reaches in regards to what we can see on that front. But I don't know what to make of it. It does make me hopeful that we will see a traditional like fantasy setup maybe next year. I feel like it's still out of the cards for this current season. But who knows? Maybe they will surprise us, and maybe the pick'em aspect of this, assuming it works, is more of a way to field interest in fantasy as a whole for the Overwatch League.
We've been wishing for that for way too long.
I know.
Like, let's be real. We've been wishing for that for way too long.
But we also haven't had an official platform. So it's a little
True.
bit different in this case. All right. Let's talk about the real story of the weekend. The big news out of Los Angeles with the Valiant. You know, it seems like every single year with the Overwatch League, there is always some fuckery happening at some point of the season.
Yes.
And, you know, this year, no exception already. Los Angeles Valiant definitely the glaring representative of said fuckery this year. And, you know, like, we heard a couple of rumors about the Valiant that were spread recently that the team was being sold by Immortals to an unknown Chinese organization. All right, so fast forward, you know, it's like a week or two later, and the LA Valiant come out, and they drop their entire roster and their staff ahead of their shift to compete in APAC for the 2021 season. So, you know, LA Valiant, in traditional fashion, you know, they hop on Twitter, they do their MS Paint tweets, which reads as followed. We want to thank all the players and staff moving on today from the LA Valiant due to, and I'm going to air quote this, COVID-related visa issues as we prepare to compete in China this season. We've worked to facilitate the best available next steps for our players and staff and wish them all the best moving forward. We look forward to having LA Valiant join NYXL and the Philadelphia Fusion in bringing more live Overwatch League content to the passionate fan base in Asia during this logistically challenging year. Okay. Now, I will note, Packin 10, you know, the coach, has shifted to Valorant.
And fucking killed it, by the way.
Did he?
Like, I'll just say that.
Okay.
I'll just say this. Like, Packing 10, because if you didn't know, I also now have a Valorant podcast, Valorant esports podcast, called Entry Frag. You know, check it out.
Cheap plug.
Cheap
You
plug.
gotta give the Mick Foley thumbs up.
Yeah. Like, his team in Valorant has been awesome. Like, Packing 10 has just been one of those people who can evaluate talent with the best of them.
Mm-hmm.
And he definitely showed it in Overwatch and in Valorant now. Like to me, like, he's a step below Krusty as far as like getting talent and stuff like that. So
Right on.
that's my Packing 10.
All right, so, you know, getting back to the roster, right? You know, you had Agilities, Adam, KSP, or Kai, which he's going by now, Rain, Lastro, Dreamer, and Shex, all without hopes. Although, you know, Kai is rumored to be joining another team. I don't know about the others. And I know in Adam's case, it's like, oh man, I finally thought I was escaping Australia, and then, you know, this shit happens. You know, basically getting the rug pulled out from underneath your feet, and you fall down on your ass. It's basically what happened here. But, you know, when you're reading this statement from the LA Valiant, you know, you cannot read past the veiled excuse of using COVID to be the reason, as if none of these other teams that were transitioning over weren't having to deal with the same shit, right? Like, this basically tells you that they either purposely held off on visa applications to the point where it just wouldn't happen in time, or they just had no intent of doing it at all. And, maybe this is just a sign that the LA Valiant, once they swap over to APEC, maybe this Chinese organization, whichever it is, we still don't know who bought this team. Maybe there's going to be a rebranding in the work. But,
And
it's
that
just
very well could be it.
it,
Yeah.
that could be the case, but it's just the fact that when the Valiant, we've heard about potential sales for a long time now for this team. And you have an organization here who have basically been trying to get checked out of esports for a while. They've had a ton of failed ventures, or they made some really weird sign-ins that just didn't pan out, across titles. And they seem to just fuck up in a lot of these ventures that they have been having within esports. And it just kind of feels like they're just at that point where they're like, all right, I don't care. I'm washing my hands with it and we're done. And they move on. It's like, they don't really care about the players. They didn't find new homes for anyone. And they're just like, all right, you guys are on your own. Fend for yourselves. Knowing that we are so late into the offseason that the likelihood that teams are still running trials or even looking to sign people has already closed at this point. So it's just like, it's just a shitty scumbag move. And, I know a lot of people are drawing comparisons to what happened with the Vancouver Titans this past season with the mass exodus and the entire restructuring of that roster, bringing in maybe some lesser known tier 2 talent, but man, you already knew the writing was on the wall. And it had been for some time. But to not put your players in a position where they would be able to succeed is just a dirtbag thing to do. And I know this soured a lot of fans' relationships with this brand in particular, where, maybe those Valiant fans are like, hey, there's one other team in LA, right? Maybe they'll all become Gladiators fans.
Yeah. The only okay, and this is one of those things where I'm gonna be playing devil's advocate here. I don't like what the Valiant did,
Mm-hmm.
but there might be circumstances that we just don't know about.
Right.
Like for instance, okay, when they signed all these players, they might not have had a sale in process
Mm-hmm.
for the team. So they signed them expecting that to happen, but league rules state that you have to have them on the roster till a certain point.
Right.
And so yes, the players may have known about it, but there's nothing they can do because the team got sold, but because they signed contracts with the team by league rules, they had to be under contract with them to a certain point. Um you know what I mean? So it may not have been the organization being like, "Hey, here's a giant FU," which is very possible, but they could have also been like, "Hey, you know, this I know this sucks, but we're selling the team, but per league rules, we can't let you go until a certain point." And if that's the case, I feel we'll probably hear something from the coaches
Mm-hmm.
of the Valiant, something like that will come out and say stuff like that. Like we couldn't get released because I even remember seeing something from Halo Thoughts about that exact situation where they had to be on the roster for a certain amount of time before you can get released per league rules. Um, so yes, it's shitty for all the players. It is ridiculously shitty. Um, but it's also in it's an esport. It's a sport. Like this is something that you kind of have to just come like one day you can have a job, the next day you're out of a job. And that's not just esports. That is football, baseball, basketball, every sport on the planet, professional sport on the planet is you can have a job one day, you cannot have a job the next. And that's just the way it goes. That is legit the way it just goes in sports. It's shitty and it sucks for the players, but you are 5,000th in a line of other people that this has happened to
Hmm.
across all sports. You know what I mean? So like it does suck. And you can't be mad at the new Chinese ownership because all they did was buy a team and they want to make it a Chinese team. I can't fault the new owners for that. I can't. Like, if you're going to be playing in China and you're a China based company, you're going to want Chinese players. Plain and simple. And I can't fault the ownership of the Valiant because you know what? I don't know the books. I don't know how much this is bleeding them dry owning the LA Valiant, or if the offer from the Chinese organization was so good they couldn't pass it up.
Hmm.
Like without knowing all this information, I can't judge everything completely. Other than the fact that I know this sucks for the players
Right. And the staff.
and the staff. Um, Now it seems like you said packing 10 and stuff like the staff kind of got shifted around in the organization, but it still sucks.
Hmm.
It sucks for all of them. It's just this is not the last time it's going to happen in the Overwatch League. I don't compare this to the Titans situation though,
Right.
because like the Titans situation was more of a the team and the management were
Hmm.
at odds with each other.
Right.
Like
They
they
were
were
button
fighting.
heads.
Yeah, they were fighting. This was more of a the team and the management got along great, but management and the owners decided to sell the team. So it's like, to me, it's not the same.
Hmm.
But I cannot cannot say this enough. This fucking sucks for the players and the coaching staff and stuff like that. Like this is bad for them. So hopefully some of them pick up with other teams. I know. I think was it Shax that was rumored to be joining the Spitfire.
Or was it Kai? I remember Kai was definitely rumored to be going somewhere.
I want to say it was Shax that was rumored Spitfire. I know Agility is taking a break to work on streaming and
Hmm.
stuff like that. I don't know anything about Adam Rain, Lastro Dreamer, but I assume they'll probably either sign with a team or go to contenders and then sign with a team once halfway through the season
Right.
or something like that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Kai was rumored to be joining Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, all right.
But again, like
Yeah,
we've heard like a lot of rumors, like even on a Valiant front too, like about some of the Chinese talent that they could be looking to pick up.
Crystal.
Nothing concrete yet, but yes, Crystal was the name that a lot of people are like, here we go again, like the problem child coming back into the Overwatch League. But until we have an official announcement from the new organization, or if there's a rebrand, which I'm assuming there is going to be a new brand for the LA Valiant
Yeah,
under new ownership.
I don't think the LA Valiant is going to stay the LA Valiant.
Yeah, especially if they are just planning on staying in APAC, which I mean is basically a guarantee, given
Yep.
the new owners.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a rebrand. And the thing is I'm fine with the rebrand because you don't need two LA teams.
Hmm.
You don't. The Overwatch League is not big enough to be like, let's have two teams in the same city.
And the California
No.
Cup was already one-sided anyways.
Yeah, you have San Francisco 2 hours north of you, so
Mhm.
you're fine. You have that rivalry. So one team in LA is fine with me. China, it needs a lot more representation.
Yep, because that's where a lot of the money and a lot of the viewership comes from.
Hmm.
All right, so yeah, that's pretty much it for this week.
Yeah,
No other
been
sign-ins.
it's been a long it's been one of our longer episodes recently because there's actually stuff to talk
Wow,
about.
there's actual news. Amazing.
Mhm.
So on the horizon, obviously BlizzCon line right around the corner. For next week, we're gonna like take the wait and see approach in regards to recording. Obviously, there's gonna be the new event starting tomorrow. If it's a light news week, like I can't imagine us just sitting down for 20 minutes to talk about Lunar New Year. Like that would be
Yeah,
kind of weird.
exactly. The year of the ox, or
So
whatever the hell it is.
yeah, so basically, obviously, with BlizzCon coming up that week, we will be doing a BlizzCon line special, which is more than likely gonna be happening that weekend.
Mhm.
Uh,
With more than just me and Totem.
yeah, which will probably be on Friday or the Saturday,
Mhm.
which will be one of our network specials. And then also that week, leading up to BlizzCon, we'll be releasing the Con Before the Storm Overwatch panel that we did, which,
Let's not
I
talk about it.
I'm not going to talk
Let's not
about
talk
it, but
about it.
it's out. But we'll release
is.
it on our feed ahead of BlizzCon, so it can be a nice primer, so to speak, leading into obviously the announcements that are going to come that weekend. So you got that to look forward to,
Basically, us bitching about Overwatch 2 not being out.
or just the confusion that the initial announcement made because no one really knew what the game was. And hopefully they do a better job presenting it, to be honest, because
That's
there are still a lot of people who don't know what this game actually is.
Yep.
That is a challenge in itself, but you got that to look forward to. Next week, tentative. But the week after, we definitely have stuff hitting the feed for you guys. So with that being said, we are going to close out the shop for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, obviously, the best thing to do is to head on over to iTunes and write us a review. Let us know how we're doing and if there is anything you would like to see us incorporate into the show. If you'd like to support Heroes Never Die or the Overwatch League podcast network, you can do so via Patreon. We have tiers starting at just $1 a month, and it is at patreon.com/OWL Network. And you too can join the likes of our master and above patrons in Daniel, Owl, and Kesha in helping our network grow. And of course, we have a plethora of ways how you guys can reach us. So, Edinar, please let them know how they can do just that.
All right. So you can reach us through email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. We are on Twitter, and that's at @hndoverwatch. We do have a website, and the website is owrecall.com. We are on YouTube at youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. You can come join us on Discord at discord.me/OWLN show. We are also live streaming on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLN show. We are a Twitch affiliate, so help to support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. Our podcast network does stream pretty regularly. So Mondays at 6 p.m. Pacific, we have the Overwatch League Network. On Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, we have this show, Heroes Never Die. And then on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, we have Tavern Tales, our Hearthstone Battlegrounds podcast, which is aired over at twitch.tv/Tavern Tales HS. You can follow me personally on Twitter, and that's at Edinar83, or on Twitch at twitch.tv/Edinar. Totem, where can they find you?
Well, you can find me over on Twitter and Twitch, both at Totally Drunk. And yeah, that does it for us here tonight, guys. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Heroes Never Die. This has been episode 232. I've been your host, Totally Drunk, joined as always by my co-host, Edinar. And we'll see you guys maybe next week Enjoy Lunar New Year. Make sure you guys log in to open your loot box. And go pick out what bundle you guys want for BlizzCon Line. You guys have a good one.
Peace out.